All right, so this is Ryan. There's the introduction.
Thanks for the introduction.
He's awesome. He's from Florida. He surfs. That's why I hired him.
Yeah, he just called me up. What do you do? I surf. All right, you're in. All right, guys, let's get started. Can you hear me? Yep. All right. I'll just run through, give you a little intro, so that way you have a little background on me, so I'm not just some random guy standing up here and talking. First off, let's get started with, as Todd said, as much interaction as possible. So whenever you have questions, raise your hand, ask them. The beauty and complexity of the first day is trying to make sure we all get to like the same baseline level. So just to get a quick show of hands, how many people have learned at some point in time some HTML and CSS before? All right, beautiful. So the majority. How many teachers do we have? Awesome. It's about half and half. Beautiful. Then the last one, who did the suggested homework or pre? All right, cool. So kind of, at least you're honest.
Has everyone completed?
There you go. So today, mainly what we're going to try to do. Yes, ma'am.
I did it, but I didn't know if I finished it or not.
That's all right. That's all right.
So the one thing about questions is you need to repeat them if we want them on record.
Okay. What was I going to say? You're good. No, thanks for the help. So the big thing about today is, trying to get everyone on the same baseline. So we're gonna go through a site, and then, well, actually, this all comes with the talk. I'm getting ahead of myself. So there's me.
Wow, what a handsome guy.
I woke up like that, as you can tell. A couple projects I'm working on right now is my baby is maker-based education, and this is how I think Todd found out about me and got me here. Is I started teaching online about 2 years ago now, and my goal is just to make it as easy as possible for people to learn HTML and CSS and front-end web development skills. And then in August, my goal is to try to get it into as many schools as possible. So we just started hitting up partnerships with like Teach for America, all over the Southeast as well, getting it into schools in the curriculum for that. So that's maker-based, and we'll be doing a lot of that stuff this week. As Todd said, and I also work on full-time now as Fedora, and I will show you more about that this week because I'll get all the recordings set up in there. That way y'all have a nice little community to talk in and view the recordings together and ask questions and give feedback on as well in there. And basically what we're doing is we're just trying to make it as easy as possible for people to teach online. So we take care. We're like, anybody ever use Shopify? Shopify? No, kind of. So Shopify, we're the Shopify for schools. So we take care of all the e-commerce and all the technical stuff and make it easy for people to teach and sell online. And then the last thing that I'm working on, this is the course I wish I had, and I think I'll take a lot of this stuff during this week to kind of add in, because I also like adding into like the soft skills side of things while I'm also teaching you the HTML and CSS. But this is the course I wish I had when I was in school. It's with a great author, Charlie Hone, and we lay out a step-by-step process of how we've taken what we call free work to get some of our dream jobs. So Charlie's worked with people like Tim Ferriss, Seth Godin, Ramit Sethi, some of the top authors around the world. And he used all of his connections to get that through free work, and this is all the stuff I use a lot to get jobs with different startups and stuff like that. So I'll add that into the class because I think it's great to not only have the hard coding skills, but also then how do I go out and get the jobs, and it aligns well with their purpose here to have this conference. All right, I'm not going to go through this. This is something I usually do with the kids to tell them that you don't have to just be a coder to learn this. Basically, that technology all around us, and you can use coding to follow your passion. Like Ed Catmull at Pixar, he wanted to be a Disney Imagineer, and he took coding and had to learn that, but his big goal was following his passion of art and storytelling.
What age group kids do you give this?
Anywhere, usually from middle school to high school.
Are you willing to share that with us?
Yeah, of course. I'll put that, yeah. I mean, the main thing is, a lot of times, since we do have some teachers in here, is, I know I was that annoying kid in class, like, why are we learning this when were we ever used to this? And I think, so I take since I was like the outlier, the problem child in class, if I can answer his questions, then I'll be good. So I just go into my 10-year-old mindset, and which isn't too hard to do, and ask those questions. So the main thing is like, a lot of the kids will come into class and be like, why am I learning this? And I think it's important to show them that technology is all around us. Nowadays, it's not just a money opportunity, but it's an opportunity for happiness, freedom, and for you to pursue, as you have this knowledge, what you enjoy doing. So I show them examples of, like we said there with Ed Catmull, a bunch of DJs nowadays are using, technology, different, math, whatever, to mix up the same beats per minute for their tracks. As that, you have the great growth hacking opportunities that are popping up, which is the crossroads of everything from marketing. It's basically, analytical marketing where you're measuring your efforts there. So it's got the psychology, it's got the creativity, and it's got the tech specs of being able to code it in and track it. And then this guy here is Brendan, I never say his last name right, but Benishat. He's the founder of TopTal. And basically, the reason why I have this in here is because he is, TopTal is like a 9-figure startup. They're making $100+ million a year. But he uses his job, and he just goes around the world and travels and works remotely. He's been all over from North America, South America, Europe, Asia. So I try to present to them that they have the opportunity to travel, and as they learn this, and they can work from anywhere. And then other examples of people that have turned their passion into businesses. I'm sure you know a lot of these companies. Pinterest, he had an design bug. The guys from 53 are awesome. They were big-time art and creativity guys, and they matched up with coders and created this awesome app, Paper, from there. And then Bleacher Report. You can also probably toss in, what's our famous Mark Cuban in there. I actually got to meet him a couple weeks ago, and he, is all about sports. So every business endeavor he's ever had was driven on sports, crossroads of sports and technology. And then, and of course, at some point, it's just going to be like reading, writing, code. It's all going to be on the same level. But we'll get through that. I'll share those slides with you. Oh, this is actually good for this part. The main thing also besides that is just the positive benefits of teaching coding, just because it has such a fast feedback loop in terms of, you plug it into the computer, it either looks like you thought it was going to look or it isn't, is that it's a great starting block, especially if you're teaching middle school, high school, to get kids to start exploring and trying new things. In terms of the the mental benefits beyond that, BYU found that in programming, kids just taking one programming class a day in less than 6 months, all their standardized test scores on the math side went up as well. And I think that has to go with the mindset that is created in finding answers and the exploration, encouragement of exploration. We'll get through all this. So.
I know you want to get moving, but my question is, usually the toughest parts in my experience in industry has been culture changes. And are you finding that with kids, they're getting beyond the nerdy, geeky, techie, monitor tan view of coders? Because, I've been a jock all my life with a little bit of a techie side, and I'm subbing now, and I'm wondering if kids, coding, yeah, the computer class, those are just for geeks and those guys that have monitor tans and gals. Are you finding that youth, when do they get past that, if they get past that? I feel that would be the toughest. You can have all this, but if you don't get past the cultural...
Yeah, I think yes, for me... I'm sorry, so he asked if we're seeing that there's like a cultural change where it's, more... the quickest way to put it is more mainstream than just, a certain niche of people. And yeah, because I went through that as well. The short answer is yes, and I think it has to do with... I think it, honestly, at the beginning, it has to do with money. In terms of, like, I was on the plane over here just this weekend, and I was, setting everything up, coding, and this kid's like, and it was I was surrounded by, like, 15-year-olds that had just come off the beach, and their parents were up front, and they were in the back having fun playing their games, and they're like, oh, what are you doing? I was like, told them what I was doing. The one kid's like, oh man, I code too, like going off on like everything he's working on, like showing me all this stuff. And I mean, he had I think they had just got back from like a hockey tournament or something like that. And I think is what it is, you have, all their conversations with me surrounded by is, but I have this app idea, how much money can I make on it, So like I think that's partly the driving force, but yes, and you see like the bros like Snapchat, CEO and stuff like that makes it more mainstream as well, plus just the everyday interaction with it. But I think
I ask that is because as teachers, we got to sell this to the students.
Yeah.
And try to bring in as many students as we can. And if they have this cultural mindset about, oh, he's trying to get me into coding, he wants to make me a geek. See, you got to get past that if you want them to get into class. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's the point.
And like, I think if you can frame it the way I try to frame it is that it's okay to be a geek or a nerd or whatever you want to call it, because all of us, and in some way at heart are that. It's just we're in that 13-year-old body that we're trying to be cool in school, and I was lucky enough to come from a school where, like, to be good at sports, to be smart, were all cool things. Like, as long as you were committed to something and passionate about something, then you seemed cool, and everyone was accepting it. That's, depends on what area you come from as well. All right. So we'll jump into goals for this week. One for me is to be as entertaining as Todd was up here. So you guys got to help me with that. Is to, and as you said, you asked, is to know the 20%. So Todd talked about the 10,000 hour rule. I'm a big fan and studier of just becoming like the best learner and teacher I can. I love learning new things, and some great books if you're into like meta learning and stuff like that is The First 20 Hours and by Josh Kaufman, and that's kind of what I frame my teaching around, as well as The 4-Hour Chef by Tim Ferriss. It is a cookbook, but it's also a meta learning book on that. So what I'm going to try to do this week is make sure we all have that initial 20%, that base foundation that gets you, Pareto's principle, that gets you 80% of the results, so that you can go out there and do 80 to 90% of everything you see on the front end HTML, CSS side, and you have those tools to then explore and have fun and add other stuff to it later. We're going to build a lot. So every day, everyone in here is going to build at least one website. Sometimes it's two. So it's going to be a lot of action on your part, and it goes along with what Todd was saying in terms of like, it's going to be a lot of like helping each other out, and we'll be coming through the crowd as we build stuff as well. And that way, you come out of here with a nice portfolio, and I'll show you an example in a second, so that way you're set up for the remaining weeks. Because at the end of these 10 weeks, if you go through all 10 weeks, I want you to have, a great site that you're proud of, where you can say, I'm Ryan Bonhart, this is what I've done these 10 weeks, look at all these things I've built. Because in my mind, if you can build it once, you can build it over and over again. It's all about competency. And then just to have fun, man. I hope by the end of the week we all know each other. We're all, cracking jokes with each other, and hopefully, you don't hate me by then. Yes?
Are we going to build the same thing, all of us, or just everybody choose what they want to do?
Yeah, so at the end of today, you're going to start off your own site. So you're going to, it's technically the same project, but, it's going to be unique to you. You're going to put whatever you want in it. All right? Goals for this week. Suggestions, this is the way I teach. I practice in when you're learning, practice in short bursts and make a schedule. The beauty is the schedule's here this week, so we don't have to make a schedule. We'll probably take a break on the hour, or we'll do 55 minutes, take a 5-minute break, 55 minutes, take a 5-minute break. That way we're just not crushing through it. I suggest, because the way I teach is through building something. And I don't do a lot of theory. I stop throughout the building process and then do theory, is to try to follow along and build it at the same time as me. That first time, and it's not going to sink in at all. It's going to probably seem completely foreign, but then later today when we go into that first project, it'll all start sinking in. Goes along with that one. Quantity over quality. I'm all about, so there's this story. They did a study in, I think it was Harvard, where they had a pottery class, and they took 2 groups of students, and they put them in 2 separate groups. They put one group A, and they said, you're going to be judged on your best piece of pottery. All we're going to do is judge you at the end of this semester on your best piece of pottery. Thank you. I keep wanting to say poverty. And then group B, they said, we're just going to judge you on how many pieces of pottery you create throughout the semester. And what they found is at the end that group B, who they were judged solely on how many they created, no matter how bad they looked or how good they looked, their final pieces of pottery were way better than group A. So we're just going to go quantity, 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 keep busting out as many sites as we can. Repetition, 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 can't say it enough. And then the encourage exploration. So you'll see I don't do too many handout resources in any of the classes I teach. I go to the sites instead, so that it kind of gets, as you're teaching your students, it encourages them to find sites, encourages them to explore online instead of just coming back to look to you for the answer every time. We already did that. Is that the end? Beautiful. All right, so let's get started. So like what we're going to do today is I have this, which I haven't worked on in some time, but that's okay, ryanbarnhart.com, and we're going to go through and build this in the morning and copy it, and that way we can go through all the building blocks of HTML and CSS and make sure we're all somewhat on the same page, have the same base level, and then in the afternoon, you're going to build your own homepage for yourself. And then at the end, of these 10 weeks and at the end of this week, you're going to start developing this portfolio of all the different things, all the different apps, sites that you've built. All right? So to get started, who has installed Sublime, or who does not have Sublime or WebStorm installed on their computer? Does anybody not?
One or the other, not both.
Just one or the other. But do you have some type of text editor installed? Is that what you're comfortable with? All right. If you want to, you're more than welcome. I'm going to work through Sublime to install that. It's quick and easy. Whatever you're comfortable with. If you're comfortable with a different text editor, that's fine too. All right, and then what we're going to do is we're going to go through and everyone's going to create a GitHub account. So, or just to make sure, is there anybody without a GitHub account? All right, perfect. Yeah, so let's go ahead and go to github.com. And zoom in just in case, in case you spell it wrong. Thank you.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with GitHub, GitHub is a version control software, distributed version control, and it's really sort of a modern way to back up and keep track of your work. And there's a lot of depth and complexity to GitHub, but
Tom, we're not going to hear you on the recording. I'm just going to say.
yeah, I'll come up and say it.
Share, Mike.
I'll just talk into your chest. No, I'll take the mic. After that awkward moment.
We're really friendly here at the.
So for those of you who aren't familiar with GitHub, GitHub is it's version control, distributed version control software. And there's a lot of depth and complexity to GitHub, but it's an absolute necessity for people to have familiarity and skills in GitHub today in the marketplace. It's even a modern day job finder. It's like, in some ways, one of the job resource resumes that people look at, employers look at when hiring others. They look at your GitHub account. And in particular, one of the trainers I found, Zeno Rocha, it's like, all the trainers, when I was looking, should I hire them? I looked at their GitHub accounts. I looked at them. I could see their code, all the code they've written. I'd see how active they are at coding. And one guy in particular, Zeno Rocha, was like, I was so blown away by his GitHub account. I was like, we got to have this guy. And then the more I learned about Zeno, is like I'd be listening to other people talk, and they'd be referencing Zeno. I'm like, wow, I'm so excited Zeno's coming. And so GitHub's an essential skill.
You didn't do that for me.
No, I got excited about you for a lot of reasons too. Yeah, but GitHub, your GitHub didn't stand out quite as much as Zeno's. But all the stuff you do with education and MakerBase and that startup in New York, I'll stroke your ego a little bit. There's a lot of great stuff about you, Ryan. You're awesome.
And also just like
You want to have a hug?
just for like if the version control didn't make sense, it's kind of like a, for lack of a better word, online journal for your code, so
Yeah,
people can
That's a good
check
way
it
to
out.
describe it. Yeah, so we'll learn a little bit about GitHub, and it'll be a way to back up our work and put our work up into a public place. And so it's just a skill we're going to be learning as we go through these 10 weeks.
Awesome.
Do we choose the free plan right now?
So the question is, do you choose the free plan? And yes, just choose the free plan. And that's all you'll need unless you start a company and you don't want people to see your code.
So I guess just so we can stay on pace, raise your hand if you have a GitHub account now, like if you've created it, just so I know when everyone's done. Have anybody still working on it? All right, I'll give you 1 sec. I'm gonna go ahead and log back in. I shouldn't have logged out because I don't know if I remember my password. All right, so we're all set on that? All right, at this point, I got to check back on my cheat sheet over here, is I want you to install GitHub on your computer. I got to remember how to get to it here.
Google install GitHub.
True. Good call. And I mean, if you're, if you're comfortable with GitHub and you can use terminal or whatever the Windows thing is, then you don't need to install it. But go ahead and Google install GitHub, and then there should be, like for me, it recognizes I'm using a Mac, so it'll be mac.github.com. If you're a PC. Right. Yeah. We're gonna do that a little later in the week, just.
Okay, you're
Because I
gonna
don't
have
wanna-
them use a client if they don't know how to use command line.
Right, and I'll show them the command line at the end of the week, just because I don't want to
Okay.
overload them too much. So go ahead and download that and get that installed on your computer.
And one more thing to mention, Paul asked, what's our goal for the week? You could see an outline, an itinerary of everything we're going to go for teaching you this week and all of the weeks by going to summerwebbootcamp.com and then looking under the schedule, and then after the descriptions of each, you could see an outline of everything we're hoping to convey to you this week. And so partly that will depend upon just, the skill set. So we're going to be targeting the medium, the middle, the median of all of your skill sets. So the majority of the class, where we're at, that's what we'll be bringing forward. But that's the outline. That's the goal of what we're going for every week. You can see that summerwebbootcamp.com under schedule. And then after the descriptions, there's a link to the page that you see Ryan looking at occasionally.
I need like red and green cards for each table. I need to go buy those later. Like green, everyone at the table is set. Everyone's good. It would work. It would work, right? I never thought of that. Do what? Right, and the hand didn't work as well as I thought it would. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, actually, since this takes a little longer, if y'all just want to